In June, a month that usually brings constant rain, over the course of just a single night, the global temperature plummeted rapidly and a bizarre heavy blizzard began to fall. The weather forecast showed that starting from today, it would snow continuously for days, and the temperature would even drop to -60 degrees. Just then, my adoptive daughter proposed to take 10 of our down duvets and $990,000 worth of bird, nest and cordyceps to the countryside to visit her biological parents who had never raised her for a single day. I didn't try to stop her at all. Instead, I immediately helped her put on her coat. What a filial and good child. Go quickly, no need to rush back. Only because in my past life, I worried about her safety on the road and had the driver fetch her parents to my house to keep warm. But I never expected that when the extreme cold apocalypse arrived, my adoptive daughter's parents, in order to seize the few remaining food supplies in the villa, would actually kick my 3-year-old daughter out of the mansion and use my life to force my husband out to search for food. The moment my husband went out, he was swallowed by the blizzard. Yet, the adoptive daughter's family just grumbled about the bad luck. I hated them to the core. That night, I set a fire to drag them down to hell with me. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day the temperature plummeted. This time, I will only protect my husband and my 3-year-old daughter.
Mom, the weather is too cold. My biological parents are still in the countryside, and they don't have heating. I'm so worried about them. I need to go see them right away and bring some things to help them nourish their bodies.
Opening my eyes, I saw my adoptive daughter, Lin Jiaojiao, ceaselessly stuffing various expensive tonics into her suitcase. Realizing I had been reborn, back to the day the temperature had just dropped to -10 degrees and not yet recovered from the pain of losing my family in my past life. I felt extremely dizzy and lightheaded. My body swayed and I fell back onto the sofa. Seeing this, Lin Jiaojiao pouted and glared at me, complaining,
Mom, what are you dazing off for? Where did you hide your bird's nest and cordyceps? I need to hurry and bring them to my biological mom and her family. They've never eaten such good things before.
I clenched my fists tight, my nails digging deep into my palms, just to hold back the urge to lash out. Back then, you were barely a month old, when your parents wrapped you in a thin blanket and threw you into the trash can outside our house. Are such heartless parents really worth your filial devotion? Lin Jiaojiao snorted disdainfully.
All right, Mom. I know you've raised me for so many years, and you're just worried that once I get close to my biological parents, I won't take care of you in your old age, right? Don't worry. I won't do that. So you don't need to deliberately try to drive a wedge between us.
Sensing that my expression wasn't quite right, Lin Jiaojiao cozied up to me again, linking her arm through mine, the very arm she had broken in my past life.
Mom, if I can be this filial to parents who didn't raise me for a single day, how could I ever treat you and Dad badly? When you raised me from childhood, don't worry, we will always be a family. The weather is so cold, and they have nothing in the countryside. I'm really worried they're having a hard time. Anyway, we have everything at home, so we won't miss these few things. Right, Mom?
I stood up abruptly, discreetly pulling my arm out of her grasp. Good child, you're right. I'll go down to the basement right now and pack some more good things for you. You should hurry up and take them to the countryside to see them. Looking pleased, Lin Jiaojiao wanted to follow me, but I pushed her right back onto the sofa. It is dusty in the basement. Just wait here. I shot a look and signaled the housekeeper, Aunt Shang, to follow me. She had worked at my house for a full 20 years and was an old-timer who had watched Lin Jiaojiao grow up. On the way to the basement, Aunt Zhang's brow was tightly furrowed. I asked her what was wrong. Aunt Zhang hesitated for a long time before speaking.
Ma'am, I really don't mean to pry, but Miss Jiaojiao was truly spoiled by you since she was a child. How can she be so ungrateful? She wants to go back to see those heartless parents of hers, and even wants to take away your birds' nests and cordyceps. Those are such good things. Are you really giving them to her?
How is this possible? In our past life, I had felt sorry for the child I raised with my own hands, and was even more worried that on such a snowy day, she would encounter danger going out alone. So, swallowing my own bitterness, I gave in to her wishes and brought her parents over. As it turned out, besides that couple, their 2 sons in their 20s came along too. Once that family arrived, the temperature plummeted again. No one could step foot outside at all. Before transportation came to a complete halt, all the security guards in the villa area fled to their own homes. So, that family from the countryside, relying on brute force, seized control over our household. My husband, our younger daughter, and I were driven into the freezing basement. Only when they needed us to cook for them were we allowed upstairs. Lin Jiaojiao happily blended in with them, looking at me me with cold, ruthless eyes.
What is wrong, Mom? This is how I lived in your house all these years. You will never understand the feeling of living under someone else's roof. Don't make it sound so nice, saying how my sister and I are both your darlings. That is not true at all. I know all your property will be left to my sister. I was just like a plaything for you to amuse yourself with when you were bored. Now that my biological parents are here, it is your turn to be the plaything.
I was furious but helpless. My husband was a university professor, refined and scholarly, with a mild temperament. He was absolutely no match for them. Lin Jiaojiao's actions nearly made me faint with anger. It was fine when there was plenty of food at home, but once the food started running out and the temperature showed no sign of rising, that family went completely mad. They harmed my younger daughter and severely injured me. When my husband went out to look for food, I was held hostage and forced to watch as he collapsed in the snow. My heart was torn to pieces. In the end, taking advantage of their inattention, I set a fire and took them all down with me. In this lifetime, I will absolutely not let those wolves into my house again. I will protect my family and get us through this apocalypse safely. Right now, Auntie Zhang looked deeply pained, as if her own flesh were being cut. I smiled slightly. Don't worry, Auntie Zhang. Giving these premium goods to such an ungrateful person would be an absolute waste, wouldn't it? Hearing this, the righteous Auntie Zhang's eyes lit up immediately. Down in the basement, Auntie Zhang and I worked together, carefully opening the packaging of various expensive supplements, taking out the contents, and then carefully resealing the empty boxes. I carried a large pile of bags and boxes over to Lin Jiaojiao. Seeing this, Lin Jiaojiao beamed with joy.
Mom, you're the best. I'll thank you on behalf of my parents in the countryside first.
I smiled faintly, took Lin Jiaojiao's coat from Auntie Zhang, and draped it over her shoulders. Take them quickly and go see your parents. If you don't leave now, it'll be dark soon. Lin Jiaojiao was taken aback.
The countryside is so far away. How am I supposed to get there?
I feigned surprise, mimicking her reaction. Jiaojiao, haven't you figured out how to get there yet? Mom saw you packing your things, so I thought you had everything planned out. Lin Jiaojiao looked embarrassed.
Then let the driver, Uncle Wang, take the biggest car we have at home and give me a ride.
I shook my head. Uncle Wang has an emergency at home. He just took some time off. In reality, he hadn't asked for time off. It was just that the very moment I was reborn, I had already given everyone in the house, except Auntie Zhang, a huge bonus, and sent them on leave. I also reminded them to stock up on plenty of food. Hearing my words, Lin Jiaojiao angrily pulled out her phone.
Why is Uncle Wang so lazy? He doesn't want to work just because the weather got cold. How can he do that? I have to call him and tell him to come back. I absolutely must use the car today.
I pressed down on her hand, stopping her from calling. No, Jiaojiao. Uncle Wang has an urgent matter at home. He can't make it back. Lin Jiaojiao grew anxious, tears welling up in her eyes.
Then what should I do? My parents are still waiting for me in the countryside. How will I get there without a car? Mom, please think of something.
I let out a sigh. Jiaojiao, you are already 18 years old. You are perfectly capable of doing what you want on your own. You don't always need your parents to arrange everything for you. Lin Jiaojiao froze. Clearly, over the past 18 years, I had anticipated her every need, and she had grown used to never putting herself out when facing difficulties, and would only choose to come to me. Seeing that I really had no intention of figuring something out for her, Lin Jiaojiao rushed over to me and started to act spoiled.
Mom, if that is the case, why don't you have Dad drive me there? It is only a 5-hour drive. If Dad does the round trip today,
Be back by 3 a.m. I sneered in my heart, but kept a neutral expression. In such freezing weather, she casually demanded. She wanted someone to drive 10 hours, just to drop her off. She truly had never felt any sympathy. This adoptive father who had done everything for her since she was a child. Just then, Lin Dong came downstairs, holding my little daughter, Duo's hand. Just as Lin Jiaojiao was about to speak to him again, I beat her to it and rejected her. No, Jiaojiao, the weather is too cold. Your dad hasn't been feeling well lately. If he drives for that long, I'll worry about him. Lin Jiaojiao looked at me in disbelief, her eyes brimming with tears.
Mom, you worry about Dad, but why don't you worry about me? With so much stuff, do you really expect me to carry it all on a bus?
I let out a sigh and feigned a helpless look. But Jiaojiao, going to the countryside to see your parents is your own choice. You can't expect your father to pay the price for your choice. He has his own things to do. Lin Dong, who had just come downstairs, was utterly confused.
Where is Jiaojiao going?
Lin Jiaojiao was too guilty to answer. I went straight ahead and explained the whole situation clearly. Even the normally good-tempered Lin Dong turned red with anger after hearing this.
Jiaojiao, why bother with such heartless parents? Why do you care about them? Have you ever wondered why they, when you were little, They didn't come to see you even once, yet they show up the moment you turn 18. What are they after?
Lin Jiaojiao, who had never been scolded by us before, instantly lost her temper as well.
In previous years, their financial situation was bad, which is why they didn't come to see me. Now that their circumstances have improved, they want to make it up to me. Is there something wrong with that? But you guys, you're terrified that I won't support you in your old age, so you spend all day trying to drive a wedge between us. You disgust me.
You.
Lin Dong trembled with rage. He slammed his hand on the table and finally managed to squeeze out,
I do not allow you to go to the countryside to see them.
Seeing this, Lin Jiaojiao showed a flash of fear, but she was utterly convinced that we weren't being sincere with her. How could a few words of opposition from Lin Dong make her give up on going to the countryside to see her biological parents? Suddenly, Lin Jiaojiao stomped her foot hard, as if she had made up her mind. She picked up the large and small bags on the floor and spun around, rushing out of the house.
You want to stop our family reunion? No way. I am absolutely going home today.
Jiao, the snow is too heavy. It is not safe outside. Come back here.
Looking at Lin Jiaojiao's running figure, Lin Dong grabbed his coat, about to chase after her. I pulled him back with a firm grip. Lin Dong looked at me in disbelief.
Wife, what is wrong with you? Jiao is the child we raised since she was little. In this kind of heavy snow, what if she runs into some danger? What then?
Once Lin Jiaojiao was gone, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I threw myself into Lin Dong's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I had a dream. You felt bad for Lin Jiaojiao, so you brought her parents over. Then the temperature plummeted again, and we were trapped in our home. To make matters worse, we didn't have enough food stockpile. They drove us into a corner. Lin Dong stroked my back, his face filled with worry. I looked up at him. Honey, Jiaojiao is not on the same page as us after all. Who knows what trouble she would cause if she stayed. Just let her go back to her parents. I'm really afraid that dream will become reality. Our duo is only 3 years old. Lin Dong nodded. He continued to comfort me. A huge weight was finally lifted from my heart. Auntie Zhang was still busy in the kitchen. I went over and stopped her. She turned around, looking completely bewildered.
Ma'am, why are you crying?
I shook my head and handed her 20,000 yuan. The weather is too cold. Something is not right. Take this money, buy as much food as you can, and go home immediately. Auntie Zhang didn't understand why, but she had always trusted me. So she took the money, thanked me repeatedly, and left. After Auntie Zhang left, I solemnly told Lin Dong that the temperature would drop even further. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Duo obediently stayed to one side, playing with her toys. Lin Dong was stunned for only a moment, and then said,
Then I'll head out right away to buy more food and supplies.
I shook my head. Go find the best workers to winterproof our house, inside and out. Reinforce the doors and windows, get a solar power panel, and clear out an area in the basement to reinforce and insulate it for warmth. To serve as our safe room. Leave the stocking up to me. Lin Dong hesitated.
Wife, do we really need to go that far?
My eyes welled with tears. If you don't want to watch Duo and me collapse right in front of you, then do as I say. Lin Dong gritted his teeth and nodded.
All right, let's divide and conquer. Duo. Be a good girl and wait at home for mommy and daddy. No matter who knocks on the door, do not open it, okay?
Duo looked up and answered me sweetly.
I know, Mommy. Duo will be good.
I ruffled her hair and without wasting another moment, drove the family minivan out. I arrived at a large supermarket. Using the excuse of donating to impoverished mountain areas, I found a staff member and ordered 100 boxes of self-heating rice, 100 boxes of self-heating hot pot, 100 boxes of self-heating hot pot, along with 50 bags of rice, 200 cases of bottled water, hundreds of pounds of long shelf-life vegetables, as well as various meats and seasonings. Once the apocalypse hits, the temperature inside the house will be lower than a refrigerator, so there is no need to worry about food spoiling. Worrying that Duo would find it hard as a child staying home, I also bought her some snacks like cookies and candies. Then came tissues, sanitary pads, shampoo, and body wash for daily necessities. I bought plenty of whatever I could lay my eyes on. The supermarket staff thoughtfully offered to deliver the items. I drove ahead and led them through the villa's back door, filling nearly half of the basement with the supplies. I wasn't worried about anyone coveting them. The villa area is sparsely populated, and once the doomsday freeze arrives, no one would even be able to walk around outside. After getting all of this done, I rushed to the mall immediately and bought a whole carload of warm-down jackets, thermal underwear, and countless disposable underwear and socks. When I returned home, the dozen or so workers my husband had hired were still reinforcing the house. In the face of survival, money didn't seem important anymore, so I took the initiative to double their pay, hoping they could finish as quickly as possible. possible. Having received the money, the foreman waved his hand and called in 10 more of his guys, deciding to work day and night to rush the job for us. I thanked them repeatedly. In the next second, my phone rang. I accidentally tapped the answer button, and Lin Jiaojiao's hysterical crying came through the line.
Mom, please come and save me. The snow on the road to the countryside is too heavy, and the taxi driver refused to keep going. He dumped me halfway. I'm going to file a complaint against him. It is so cold. Boo-hoo. Mom, what should I do? Please come and save me.
If this were the past, hearing Lin Jiaojiao cry so pitifully, I would have wished I could fly over instantly to hold her and comfort her. But now, I could barely hold back my laughter, silently thinking she got exactly what she deserved. However, her crying and screaming were so loud that they reached my husband standing next to me through the phone. He anxiously snatched the phone away and asked her loudly,
Jiao, where are you?
On the other end of the line, Lin Jiaojiao cried out desperately for her father.
I don't know where I am either. Dad, please come and save me.
Lin Dong opened location sharing with Lin Jiaojiao and found that she was only about an hour's drive away from the village where her biological parents live, was probably only about an hour's drive away. Seeing this, he grabbed his car keys, preparing to go pick up Lin Jiaojiao. I pulled him back. Are you insane? It is already dark. The snow is so heavy and the country roads are hard to navigate. It is too dangerous. She is not far from her biological parents' place anyway. Let them go and pick her up. Lin Dong looked at me in disbelief and then shook off my hand.
Due, what is wrong with you? I know you're jealous that Jiao cares about her biological parents, but we raised her ourselves after all. You know it is dark and dangerous, so how can you bear to watch our child starve and freeze out there, all for some baseless dream of yours? Don't you think you're being ridiculous? If something happens to Jiao, when that time comes, it'll be too late. For regrets, I have to go pick up the child. You stay home and look after Due.
I knew it was impossible for Lin Dong to believe right now that Lin Jiaojiao was an ungrateful wretch through and through, and that she would even destroy our entire family in the near future. But I couldn't just stand by and watch him drive to his death either. In absolute desperation, I called out to him. I'll call her biological parents and ask them to pick her up. After all, they are much closer to her. It would take you 4 hours to get there. Lin Dong looked skeptical.
That couple is completely unreliable. Would they really go pick her up?
I nodded. And after explaining the situation, the person on the other end sneered.
What? Did I hear you right? In this heavy snow, you want me to pick that girl up? That is a 1.5 hour motorcycle ride. No way. I'm not going. I wouldn't go for anything. It is freezing cold. Who is going to take responsibility if I freeze to death? It is not like I asked her to come see me. Why did she have to pick a time like this? If something happens to her, it is just her bad luck.
Hearing Sun Daqiang's voice, Lin Jiaojiao's biological father, again, I felt nothing but intense hatred. A wave of nausea churned in my stomach, suppressed my discomfort. I covered the phone, making sure Lin Dong wouldn't hear any of this, and whispered, she brought you bird's nest and cordyceps.
What is so great about that stuff? Do you really think I'd brave this blizzard just to pick her up for some cheap gifts? Keep dreaming.
Those things are worth 200,000 yuan. If you sell them, it'll be just enough to cover the bride price for your son's marriage. Sun Daqiang's family was dirt poor. His 2 sons were in their early 30s and still unmarried. This was his biggest sore spot. Upon hearing my words, Sun Daqiang didn't hesitate for another second.
I'm going to video call Lin Jiaojiao right now. If I don't see any bird's nest or cordyceps, I'm definitely not going.
After the call was disconnected, I told Lin Dong that Sun Daqiang had agreed to pick up Lin Jiaojiao. Although he was still very worried under my insistence, he didn't say anything more. 10 minutes later, Sun Daqiang must have video called Lin Jiaojiao, confirmed the pile of expensive gift boxes, and agreed to ride his motorcycle to pick her up. Lin Jiaojiao posted on her WeChat moments.
Biological parents are still the best after all. No matter how much others pretend to love you on regular days or claim they'd do anything for you, they will only hide away when it really matters. Waiting for my dearest father.
The post was accompanied by a photo of Lin Jiaojiao, with her face flushed red from the freezing weather. All night, Lin Dong supervised the workers as they rushed to finish the job without saying another word to me. I knew he was feeling extremely upset, and I didn't persist in trying to comfort him, but I kept feeling a sense of unease in my heart. So, I called over 2 workers and paid a hefty price to install a super sturdy, bulletproof door at the entrance of the basement overnight. As for the insulation measures in the basement, I personally supervised them the entire time, and they did an excellent job. At the break of dawn, all the workers finished their work and left. I tidied up the basement and coaxed my daughter to sleep, while Lin Dong was upstairs by himself, sleeping in the master bedroom with the heater on, half asleep. I heard someone banging loudly on the front door, interspersed with all kinds of nasty curses. Checking the surveillance footage, I saw Lin Dong had already opened the door and welcomed Sun Dakyang's family inside. Lin Jiaojiao followed at the very back, her face covered in bruises, her entire expression written with hatred. The very first second she walked in, she questioned Lin Dong.
But why? Why were the gift boxes Du Wei gave me all empty?
It was already too late for me to go up and save Lin Dong. At this moment, Lin Dong was completely bewildered, not yet having recovered from the joy of Lin Jiaojiao's safe return.
What do you mean empty? Jiaojiao, how did you get hurt?
Stop pretending.
In a fit of rage, Lin Jiaojiao threw all the gift boxes at Lin Dong. The next second, Sun Dakyang rushed forward, grabbed Lin Dong by the collar, and slapped him hard across the face, and then kicked him to the floor. He pointed at Lin Dong on the ground, panting heavily.
Pa, to tell you, I borrowed a van from someone and drove all night just to settle the score with you. Who do you think you are? Playing me like this? Just watch how I handle you. In such heavy snow, I brought my wife and son all this way to settle the score. We were almost buried by the snow halfway here. Jiaojiao said you have tons of good stuff in your house. Hurry up and hand them over as compensation.
Sun Dakyang grew tired from the beating. He sat right on top of Lin Dong, who was sprawled on the floor, his eyes constantly scanning everything in the house. That greedy look in his eyes made it seem like he wanted to claim everything as his own. Lin Dong had been beaten half to death. He reached out to grab his phone on the floor.
I'm going to call the police and have you arrested.
Lin Jiaojiao kicked his phone far away.
Are you crazy, Lin Dong? That is my dad. Why are you calling the police? You stole me away for so many years and separated us as father and daughter. Then you only doted on Lin Duo and didn't cherish me at all. Now asking you for some compensation is letting you off easy.
Lin Dong's face was filled with pain. Aside from the physical pain, the pain in his heart was even worse. Just like in my previous life, he could never have imagined that Lin Jiaojiao, whom we had raised with such meticulous care, not only had absolutely no familial affection for us, but actually hated us to her very core. Lin Jiaojiao only ever saw us as villains who had stolen her from her biological parents, but because we were worried she might get jealous or feel insecure, we had even given up a child for her sake. It wasn't until an unexpected pregnancy at age 40 that we decided to keep Duo. Ever since Duo was born, Lin Jiaojiao seemed to change completely. No matter how much we favored her and catered to her feelings, she always felt we were just putting on a show. That is why, after her biological parents showed up, she was so impatient to acknowledge them. She will never know that the warm reception her biological parents gave her was entirely bought with our money. We paid them not to tell her the truth and to treat her better. Thinking back on it now, I really wish I could slap myself twice. Without waiting for Lin Dong to speak, Lin Jiaojiao led Sun Dakyang to my master bedroom like presenting a treasure. Through the master bedroom security camera, I clearly saw her open the safe and take the cash and my jewelry from inside and handing it all over to Sun Dakyang. She looked at Sun Dakyang with a face full of hope.
Dad, with these things, you guys will never have to suffer again. We can finally be reunited as a family.
The money-grubbing Sun Dakyang laughed heartily. He patted Lin Jiaojiao on the shoulder.
Very well. Truly worthy of being my good daughter.
After saying this, he looked greedily at my villa.
This house looks pretty nice.
As soon as he finished speaking, Sun Dakyang went downstairs, pointed at Lin Dong, and ordered his two sons, Sun Ershang and Sun Shaoshang, kick this man out of our house. Lin Dong was in disbelief.
Sun Dakyang, breaking into a private residence is against the law.
If you dare to call the police, I'll sue you for kidnapping my daughter. Let's see who ends up worse.
Lin Dong struggled to no avail. Without even wearing his coat, he was forced out by Sun Erchang and Sun Shaochang into the freezing snow, shivering violently from the cold, desperately banging on the reinforced doors and windows. Seeing this, Lin Jiaojiao showed a rare trace of fear. She pulled at Sun Dakyang's sleeve and said,
"It is so cold outside. What if Lin Dong freezes to death?"
Sun Dakyang let out a chuckle.
If he dies, isn't that even better? Then no one will fight us for the villa anymore. On such a cold day, instead of quickly going to find a warm place, he just has to linger here. If something happens to him, can you blame me? He'd only have himself to blame. What? He raised you for so many years, so you can't bear to let something happen to him?
Hearing this, Lin Jiaochang immediately waved her hands to clear herself.
He is not my biological father anyway. His safety has nothing to do with me.
At the door, Lin Dong kept knocking. The tears and runny nose on his face froze instantly. His knocking grew weaker and weaker, knowing very well he couldn't hold on much longer. I had to risk being discovered, to slip out of the basement's back door and fetch him. After telling my daughter to stay absolutely quiet, wrapped in my thickest long down jacket, I opened the door and stepped into the wind and snow. A short distance of just 20 meters. Took me a very long time to walk. Finally, I saw Lin Dong's body outside the main gate, already half buried in the snow. Taking out the pebbles I had prepared in advance, I hid around the corner and threw them at him one by one. Lin Dong finally reacted and turned his head with great difficulty. The moment our eyes met, I waved at him urgently. He quietly crept toward me and grumbled,
Why did you come up?
I let out a sigh as I looked at his frostbitten face. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and follow me. I brought Lin Dong back to the basement and locked the door securely again. This door has also been reinforced. It is impossible to open from the outside. Besides, I calculated the time. In a little while, this door will also be blocked by the heavy snow, so it is absolutely safe. The temperature in this room wasn't cold. I found a thick blanket and wrapped it around him, then handed him a glass of warm water. Lin Dong looked at me gratefully, tears streaming down his face.
Wife, you were right. Lin Jiaojiao. She really is a piece of trash. It is all my fault for not seeing her true colors. Now they've seized the house, and they took my phone too. My phone. That is right. Wife, hurry up and call the police.
It is too late for that. I held Duo in my arms and said calmly, the traffic has already been paralyzed by the heavy snow. Now, we can only rely on ourselves.
What do you mean?
Meeting Lin Dong's eyes, which were filled with confusion and shock, I smiled slightly and stood up, walked to the deepest part of the basement, and stood before that hidden sliding door. With a sudden pull, I threw it open. Whoosh! The lights inside the door turned on. Lin Dong was completely stunned. His mouth was open wide enough to fit an egg. In an area of over 50 square meters, densely packed and neatly stacked, was a massive stockpile of supplies. On the left were boxes stacked upon boxes, reaching all the way to the ceiling, filled with bottled water, self-heating rice, and self-heating hot pots. On the right were vacuum-packed premium rice, flour, and various canned goods. In the corner stood several huge chest freezers. Although the power was currently cut, the air vents specially left in the basement, drawing in the extreme cold air from outside, turned this place into a natural, giant freezer. It was packed with all kinds of meat and fresh vegetables, and there were even piles of toilet paper, medical kits, warm clothing, and several barrels of diesel stacked in the corner.
This is...
Lin Dong stammered, pointing at this granary that looked like an apocalyptic bunker. I've been preparing for a long time. I said coldly, this heavy snow isn't going to last just a few days, or even a few weeks. It is an extreme cold apocalypse that definitely won't stop for weeks. In this frozen end times, we just need to stay comfortably hidden here before that gang of thugs upstairs is driven to desperation and starves to death. And watch how they tear each other apart. The snow fell heavier and heavier, as if it wanted to completely swallow the whole world. Upstairs, that bunch of uncultured simpletons were currently lost in a frenzied celebration. On the surveillance screen, Lin Jiaojiao, to please her biological parents and brother, behaved like the mistress of the house and extremely generously took out all the premium ingredients stored in my French door refrigerator, filling a long table with them. To save trouble, she took those ingredients that required careful cooking and threw them together into a chaotic stew, or forced them to heat up in the microwave. Roast turkey, Yangsheng Lake hairy crabs, premium Australian Wagyu steaks, thick-cut salmon sashimi, and all kinds of expensive imported tropical fruits were all being sloppily devoured by them like pigs at a trough. Sun Ershang and Sun Xiaoshang sat on the leather sofa without even washing their hands, directly used their filthy hands to grab the hairy crabs, chewing them shell and all, eating with grease dripping from their mouths, juice dripping all over the expensive carpet. They were having the time of their lives. Zhang Kuihua pulled Lin Jiaojiao's hand close. While stuffing bird's nest into her mouth, she kept showering her with praise, saying she had given birth to a wonderful daughter. His ancestors must be smiling in their graves. Not only did she bring back a fortune, but she also let them live in a palace. Looking at this happy and harmonious family of 5, I could only say that being uneducated and utterly foolish is truly terrifying. If it weren't for this once-in-a-millennium snow apocalypse, this family of thugs, just based on today's surveillance footage of assault and robbery, would have been rotting in prison long ago. And besides, although the food in the upstairs fridge usually looked like a lot, it was only enough for our family of 3 to eat for a week or two. Now, with the 4 of them acting like hungry wolves, wasting it so recklessly and without restraint, combined with the food spoiling due to the power outage, I estimated that tomorrow at the earliest, or the day after tomorrow at the latest, they would completely run out of food. I sneered, turned off the surveillance screen, and took 3 tomato beef flavored, self-heating mini hot pots off the shelf. I poured in the water. A few minutes later, the rich aroma of tomato and beef filled the entire safe basement. I, Lin Dong, and Duo sat around the warm table and ate the steaming hot meal. Lin Dong took large bites of the beef drenched in broth, his tears falling heavily into his bowl. I couldn't tell if he felt lucky or if he felt sorrow for his past self. Early the next morning, Lin Dong and I were awakened by a sudden, extremely violent smashing sound from upstairs, accompanied by bitter, shrill crying. I immediately took out my phone to check the surveillance. I saw that the dining room was a total mess. Sun Ershang had an extremely impatient look on his face. He suddenly raised his hand and swept the porcelain plates containing the leftover food on the table to the side.
This is absolutely ridiculous.
He pointed at Lin Jiaojiao and scolded her harshly.
I went through so much trouble to rush over here, and this morning, you actually only served me overnight leftovers. Are you trying to half-ass this?
His tone became increasingly aggressive.
Hurry up and go to the kitchen, and according to last night's menu, prepare the meal, sear 5 steaks, and steam some crabs. Not a single dish can be missing.
Lin Jiaojiao was already feeling extremely downcast, and being publicly scolded by him like this made her feel both wronged and embarrassed. She stood frozen in place, utterly at a loss. When had she ever suffered this kind of grievance? For 18 years, in the Lin family, even if she had just a tiny scratch on her skin, the whole family would fuss over her. She broke down and cried hysterically, subconsciously wanting to find someone to lean on, repeatedly crying out, "Mom." In her heart, she was still subconsciously thinking of me, her adoptive mother. In her subconscious, she was still calling out to me, her adoptive mother. Hearing the commotion, Zhang Kuihua, with her hair in a messy dishevel, walked quickly down from the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. Seeing her son's face full of displeasure, she did not care about Lin Jiaojiao's situation at all. Instead, she immediately stepped forward to take Sun Ershang's side.
What is all this shouting and racket first thing in the morning?
She sternly scolded Lin Jiaojiao.
Look how you've made your brother completely upset. If he gets sick from anger, what are we going to do?
Sun Ershang took Zhang Kuihua's arm, complained with a look of grievance on his face.
Mom, I had a hard life back in the countryside. Now that I finally made it to the city, she only gives me overnight leftovers to eat.
Watching the monitor from the basement, I found it absolutely ridiculous. After eating well for just one day, this family really started treating themselves like royalty. The food on the table, though indeed leftover from their dinner last night, was actually all premium leftover steak and crab legs. In the apocalypse, this was a feast that people would kill for. Yet, Sun Ershang looked so disgusted, as if eating all this meat and seafood was somehow beneath a village thug like him. Zhang Kuihua stepped forward and grabbed her, her tone filled with displeasure and resentment.
You've been enjoying a good life in the city for 18 whole years, eating and drinking the very best, while our family was suffering in the countryside.
Zhang Kuihua's eyes were filled with pathological jealousy and malice.
Now that we've finally made it here, it is our turn to enjoy life. How dare you feed your brother leftovers? Do you have any conscience at all?
Lin Jiaojiao had never been treated like this before. She trembled with fear, completely stunned. Pushing her grievances aside, she covered her forehead and hurriedly explained through her tears.
No, it is not true. Mom, it is not that I didn't want to cook for my brother. It is just that there is no food left in the house. The fridge is completely empty.
Hearing this, Sun Dakyang, who had just walked downstairs yawning, instantly changed his expression. He slammed his hand hard against the staircase handrail.
No food? How could there be no food? In such a huge house, how could there not be a single bite of food hidden away?
There really isn't anymore. Last night, you all ate all the meat and seafood in the fridge. Only the raw side ingredients and condiments are left.
Sun Dakyang rushed into the kitchen in a few strides. He pulled open the refrigerator and looked. Sure enough, there were only a few shriveled lemons left and a bottle of salad dressing. He turned his head away and slapped Lin Jiaojiao on the other side of her face, roaring,
If there is no food, can't you go out and buy some? Aren't you the young mistress of this house? Call for delivery. Tell that piece of trash Lin Dong to go buy some.
At this moment, blinded by hunger and rage, they finally looked past the massive TV wall and toward the panoramic floor-to-ceiling window in the living room. Everyone gasped in shock. They realized that after just one night, the terrifying blizzard outside had not weakened at all. Instead, it was falling heavier and heavier. The snow had accumulated like a massive white wall, burying more than half of the first-floor window. The world outside had turned into a chaotic void of white. Forget about people. Even the streetlights were completely invisible. They were thoroughly trapped here. The Sun family's eyes, previously filled with greed and arrogance, suddenly dilated, creeping with deep, visceral horror.
Oh my God.
Zhang Kuihua's legs went weak. She slapped her thigh, sat flat on the floor, and began to wail in utter despair.
Oh heavens, the heavens are coming for our lives. This heavy snow is going to bury us alive. There is no food left, and we can't get any delivery. We're going to die in this iron cage.
At this point, Zhang Kuihua suddenly seemed possessed by an evil spirit. Her expression turned fierce and vicious. She lunged up from the floor, pointed right at Lin Jiaojiao's nose, and began to curse furiously, her spit flying everywhere.
It is all your fault, you jinx. You heartless wretch. If you hadn't lied to us on WeChat, saying there were so many valuable things here, and good food, and begged and cried for us to come pick you up, how could we have ended up trapped in this godforsaken place, back in our cellar in the countryside? We would at least have hundreds of pounds of sweet potatoes to survive on. Now you've completely ruined us. See if I don't teach you a good lesson today, you bringer of bad luck.
After saying this, Zhang Kuihua, like a mad shrew, stepped forward and grabbed Lin Jiaojiao, scolding her harshly. Her words filled with resentment and blame. Lin Jiaojiao, unable to defend herself, could only shrink to the side in embarrassment, completely helpless.
Enough!
After a long silence, Sun Daqiang, whose face was incredibly dark, finally barked out a shout. Only then did Zhang Kuihua stop her scolding. Lin Jiaojiao fell to the floor, utterly devastated, her clothes disheveled, his eyes rimmed with red, able only to suppress her emotions and sob quietly. Watching this scene from the basement, Lin Dong clenched his hands tightly into fists, but in his eyes there was no longer even a shred of pity. As things stand now, having experienced a life-and-death betrayal, he had finally aligned himself completely with me. Looking coldly at Lin Jiaojiao on the screen, he squeezed out 2 words through his teeth.
Serves her right.
Sun Daqiang ignored Lin Jiaojiao on the floor. Like a hungry wolf searching for prey, he stared at her, his tone icy cold.
In this house, is there really not even a single grain of rice left? If you dare lie to me, I will make you pay a painful price right now.
Lin Jiaojiao was terrified, her body trembling uncontrollably. She recognized that look in Sun Daqiang's eyes. It was the look of someone who had truly turned ruthless, driven by the instinct to survive. Her mind raced frantically, desperately searching her memory for every corner of the house. Suddenly, her eyes lit up, as if she had grabbed onto a final lifeline, her hand trembling. She pointed toward the far end of the first-floor hallway.
The basement. There must be food in the basement.
Lin Jiaojiao began to scream like a madwoman.
Due, that old woman, bought a ton of things yesterday. I saw the delivery guys carrying them in with my own eyes. They must all be hidden in the basement.
Hearing this, my heart skipped a beat. I instinctively locked eyes with Lin Dong. Both of us held our breath, not daring to make a sound. Usually, Lin Jiaojiao disdained going to the basement the most. She considered herself the high and mighty young mistress of the house. A basement used for storage and damp place was somewhere she should never set foot in. So, she never knew the specific layout of the basement, but now, to save her own skin and deflect the wrath of Sun Daqiang's family, she betrayed our final sanctuary. Without a second thought, Lin Jiaojiao scrambled frantically at the very front, leading the 4 demons of the Sun family. As they rushed toward the basement door, the one disguised as an ordinary wooden door, she yanked open that old wooden door. Old wooden door used to deceive the eye. The hopeful smile on her face instantly froze. Behind the old door, there did not appear the warehouse filled with food that she had imagined. Instead, there was a cold, metallic, gleaming, tightly sealed dark gray pure steel blast door, 1 centimeter thick, with even its gap sealed with special material. Lin Jiaojiao was completely dumbfounded, desperately pounding on the cold steel plate.
How could this be? This door wasn't here before.
Behind her, Sun Daqiang, looking at this obviously newly installed, indestructible steel door, did not fall into despair. Instead, he grinned widely, revealing an extremely greedy and hair-raising smile. He grabbed Lin Jiaojiao by the collar, like a piece of scrap rag, and violently threw her away from the door and against the wall. Thud.
Ha ha ha! God doesn't let a blind sparrow starve. Behind this steel door, there must be life-saving good stuff hidden.
Sun Daqiang laughed wildly. He turned his head, staring viciously at the dazed and dumbfounded Lin Jiaojiao, squinting his eyes as he interrogated her.
Inside here, someone is hiding, right?
Covered in injuries, Lin Jiaojiao collapsed on the cold tiled floor, facing her biological father's extremely fierce glare. Her psychological defense completely collapsed. New and old hatred welled up in her heart. She stared fixedly at the steel door, her eyes bursting with an extremely resentful light, as she roared through gritted teeth.
Due, my dear mother, you're the one hiding inside, aren't you? That useless old thing must have been saved and taken inside by you too. Didn't you keep saying you loved me the most? Didn't you say I was your life? But why? Why are you hiding inside and refusing to come out to save me? Watching me get beaten by them makes you very happy, doesn't it?
As she reached the end, her voice turned into a desperate, beast-like roar. She scrambled up from the ground and began to pound frantically, disregarding everything, and kicking wildly at the steel basement door with her feet, making heavy, muffled thuds.
Du Wei, you heartless woman. Get out here. Get out here and hand over the food. Du Wei, open the door.
Inside the basement, the deafening echoes made our eardrums hurt. I tightly covered my young daughter, Duo's ears, holding her close in my arms, and coaxed her softly. Duo, don't be afraid. That is just the bad people outside shouting. This door is very strong. We are very safe here. The bad people can absolutely never get in. Duo nodded obediently, burying her little head into my chest. Lin Dong gripped a fire axe tightly in his hand, staring at the door as if facing a formidable enemy. Outside the door, after finding that pounding on it was useless, Sun Daqiang took Sun Erqiang and Sun Xiaoqiang like red-eyed beasts and went to the kitchen to gather every usable tool they could find. Heavy pipe wrenches, iron hammers, and even a heavy wrench used for fixing water pipes.
Pry it open, for me. Pry open this piece of junk iron. There is definitely food inside.
Sun Daqiang ordered, his eyes bloodshot. Bang, clang, clack, clack, clack. For the next 2 whole days, these 3 men, like tireless madmen, took turns violently hacking, smashing, battering, and prying at the steel door. However, this was a door I had paid double the price for, made of the highest grade blast-resistant steel plates, and welded overnight, with a special hydraulic lock, a super security door. Forget about hammers and axes. Even if they brought an electric saw, they would still be completely helpless with the power cut off. 2 days passed. The once smooth surface of the steel door was now covered in countless white scratches from the hacking. The hammer's handle had snapped, and the pipe wrench was bent out of shape. They had licked up every last grain of rice from the kitchen floor, and even dug out the discarded fish bones from the trash can to chew and swallow them down. Yet, the door remained completely unmoved, like an insurmountable mountain of steel. From extreme physical exhaustion, the 3 men of the Sun family were dizzy and lightheaded with hunger, collapsing outside the door, gasping for breath. As for Lin Jiaojiao, because she was seen as a burden, she hadn't been given a single drop of water or a single scrap of food over the past 2 days. She was starved past the point of recognition, her eyes deeply sunken, her lips cracked and bleeding. She didn't even have the strength to stand up, able only to lie dying in the corner of the stairs. Extreme hunger had finally stripped away the last veneer of humanity, exposing the most primitive and brutal animal instincts. His eyes red with hunger, Sun Daqiang glared savagely at Lin Jiaojiao in the corner. As if dragging a sack of garbage, he grabbed Lin Jiaojiao by her hair and dragged her all the way to the basement entrance. Pressing himself against the crack of the door, Sun Daqiang used a hoarse yet vicious voice to yell inside.
Du Wei, Lin Dong, listen up. You 2 cowards. I know you're in there eating and drinking like royalty. My patience has run out. If you don't open this door right now and hand over the food with both hands, I will take your precious daughter, the darling you raised for 18 years, and throw her right out of the 2nd floor window into the freezing snow outside. To freeze a person into a rock-hard block of ice. I don't believe you can really stand by and watch her. I'm counting to 3.
From outside the door came Lin Jiaojiao's weak but extremely terrified whimpering. I sat on the sofa in the basement, watching the surveillance screen expressionlessly. Lin Dong's body shuddered violently, but he clenched his teeth, clenched his fists tightly, and did not say a word, even closing his eyes. Dead silence. There was no response from inside the basement. Seeing that his threat was useless, Sun Daqiang lost his mind completely. He let out a beast-like roar, grabbed Lin Jiaojiao by the collar, like carrying a little chicken, and dragged her toward the 2nd floor.
Dad, please don't. I'm your biological daughter. You can't do this to me.
Lin Jiaojiao finally realized that death was looming, bursting out with her remaining strength to struggle frantically.
Biological daughter? I have plenty of sons. Why would I want a deadweight like you who only eats and does no work? Since they don't care about you, then fend for yourself.
Sun Daqiang was cold-blooded to the extreme. He pushed open the master bedroom window on the 2nd floor, which was heavy with ice. The wild, freezing wind and snow instantly swept into the room. With a face full of coldness, Sun Daqiang stepped forward, grabbed Lin Jiaojiao, and dragged her to the window. The cold wind howled outside the window. Lin Jiaojiao trembled all over with fear and cried out, losing her voice.
Mom, I was wrong.
In Lin Jiaojiao's mind, scenes from the past 18 years flashed by like a revolving lantern. She remembered when she was sick with a high fever. It was I who stayed up all night, wiping her body with warm water and brewing her favorite chicken soup. She remembered when she wanted to play the violin at the school gala. It was Lin Dong who ran across half the city to buy her the most beautiful beautiful princess dress. But now, the biological parents she tried so hard to please not only coveted her belongings, but also mistreated her again and again.
Only you truly love me. Mom, they don't love me at all. They only want money. And they even beat me. Mom, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please open the door and save me, please. I'll never do it again. Dad, save me.
Extreme regret and fear, along with her tears, instantly froze into icicles on her face. However, it was all too late. Annoyed by her noise, Sun Dakyang shoved her forward with a sudden burst of force. I yawned. A short, piercing shriek cut through the air, followed by the dull thud of a heavy object falling into deep snow. Lin Jiaojiao was ruthlessly thrown down into the freezing world where the snow was 2 meters deep. She was instantly buried by the wind and snow, and there was no more sound. Bang! Sun Dakyang slammed the window shut, blocking out the wind and snow, and ran back to the basement door, pounding on it violently. He laughed like a madman.
Ha ha ha. Your daughter is about to die. The snow outside is so thick, even if she doesn't die from the fall, she won't be able to climb up. Due, if you don't come out to save her now, she will really die. 5 minutes? In 5 minutes at most, she will freeze solid.
Listening to the clamor of the thug outside, I closed my eyes, and what flashed in my mind were entirely scenes from my past life. I will always remember when the food ran out in my past life. It was that vicious, ungrateful Lin Jiaojiao who, in order to please Sun Ershang, personally snatched 3-year-old Duo from my arm. It was also her who ignored my begging and kowtowing and ruthlessly threw Duo out of that window, watching with her own eyes as my poor daughter was buried alive by the heavy snow. And now, she was finally tasting that same despair. I absolutely would not risk even a single hair on my head for such a venomous snake. By taking the slightest risk to my life to open this gate that was protecting our family. But, beside me, Lin Dong's breathing was becoming more and more rapid. In the end, he was a father who couldn't be completely cold-blooded. Even though reason told him she was a venomous snake, those desperate, shrill cries of, "Dad, save me," were still like sharp daggers, piercing through his final psychological defense. He suddenly opened his bloodshot eyes, turned around, grabbed the heavy winter military coat nearby, threw it over his shoulders, and prepared to go out.
Wife, I'm sorry. I'll just open the door a crack. Throw a rope and pull her in. I can't just watch her die.
Lin Dong said with a trembling voice. Lin Dong, stop right there. I barked sharply, but he could no longer listen. He reached out to unlock the hydraulic lock. The moment this door opened, those 4 starving beasts outside would instantly rush in, making us pay a tragic price. I could not let my child and my family face any more danger, so Lin Dong absolutely could not go out. My eyes grew fierce. I casually grabbed a solid defense baseball bat, leaning near the door. Without a moment's hesitation, I aimed for the back of Lin Dong's head and, applying just the right amount of force, struck him hard with a heavy blow. Thud, Lin Dong let out a muffled groan. Her eyes rolled back, and his tall, sturdy frame collapsed limply onto the floor. I tossed the bat aside and quickly grabbed some thick nylon rope used for securing supplies. I tied his hands and feet tightly to the sofa, then stuffed a towel into his mouth to prevent him from making any noise or biting himself when he woke up. Looking at my husband lying there, my hands trembled slightly. The moment I knocked him unconscious, I had already prepared myself for the worst-case scenario. Once this apocalypse was over, he might blame me for being cruel and heartless, for leaving someone to die, and demand a divorce. But I didn't care. As long as I could keep him and Duo alive, I would gladly pay the price, even if it meant he hated me for the rest of his life. Outside the door, Sun Dakyang's family waited anxiously for half an hour. Seeing that the basement remained dead silent, they finally fell into complete despair. They realized that using Lin Jiaojiao's life would never get this door to open. Lin Jiaojiao was completely abandoned. She froze to death right outside the door of what was once her home. In the days that followed, the situation upstairs turned into a literal living hell. Another 3 whole days passed. The extreme cold brought not only freezing temperatures, but also a hunger that could strip away all sanity. Late that night, as I was holding Duo in a sleeping bag for warmth, I suddenly heard through the monitor a loud, heavy thud, followed by the sound of collapsing tables and chairs, and an extremely brutal scuffle. I quickly pulled out my phone to check. On the screen, hunger had completely turned the 4 men of the Sun family into beasts who would fight each other just to survive. With eyes glowing green from starvation, Xiang and Xiaochang, the two young and strong sons, had actually teamed up to pin down the thin Zhang Kuihua and the elderly son Daqiang forcefully onto the ground.
What are you doing? Have you lost your minds? I am your father.
Son Daqiang roared in terror. Son Xiang's face was contorted and hideous like a mad demon.
Dad, Mom, you've lived long enough anyway. If we keep starving like this, all four of us will die. Why don't you go out and find some food for your sons?
The snow is so heavy outside. Do you want us to freeze to death?
Zhang Kuihua screamed and struggled.
Cut the crap.
Sun Xiaochang acted without mercy, actually stripping by force the slightly thicker coats and sweaters off Sun Daqiang and Zhang Kuihua and putting them on himself.
You might as well stay outside. This last bit of shelter in the house should be left for us two brothers.
Even as the couple wailed and sobbed on the ground, begging desperately for mercy, Sun Ershang and Sun Xiaoshang did not soften their hearts at all. In the face of survival, so-called filial piety and family bonds were simply not worth mentioning. In this deeply rotten family, the brothers' accumulated resentment toward their parents erupted completely. They forcefully dragged Sun Daqiang and Zhang Kuihua to the second-floor window and insisted on throwing them out of the house. The wind and snow howled. Sun Daqiang, wearing only thin indoor clothes, and Zhang Kuihua stood in the freezing snow, unable to stop themselves from shouting in anger. The two of them were pushed into a desperate situation, trudging with great difficulty through the waist-deep snow. Sun Ershang, who was used to enjoying the fruits of others' labor, and Sun Xiaochang gradually couldn't hold on any longer. Ultimately, Sun Erchang and Sun Xiaochang could not endure it either. The next day, they crawled down the stairs and lay flat outside the basement door. They were already too starved to have the strength to shout, and they didn't even have the strength to stand up anymore. On the surveillance monitor, these two formerly arrogant and overbearing thugs were weeping uncontrollably, lying on the ground like dogs, using their weak fingers to gently scratch the door panel, making bone-chilling, pleading sounds.
Anyon inside. Please, I beg you, give us something to eat. I don't want to die. I'll kowtow to you. Even a single grain of rice is fine.
I sat on the warm sofa, looking at those two skull-like faces on the screen, my gaze as cold as iron. I knew the story of the farmer and the snake all too well. If I soft-hearted now, opened the door, and let them eat and drink their fill, allowing them to regain their strength, given their utterly conscienceless nature, what awaited us would be the death of our family of three. So, I remained unmoved, without even a single change in the rhythm of my breathing. I just quietly watched them struggle in despair outside the door, twitching, until finally, they lost all signs of life, freezing into two lifeless corpses inside the basement. Lindong woke up the day after he was knocked unconscious. Upon waking up, he found himself tied up, and saw everything that had happened on the surveillance monitor, including Lin Jiaojiao's death, and the Sun family father and son slaughtering each other. He hadn't said a single word to me for 3 whole days. Every day, he would just stare blankly at the ceiling, neither eating nor drinking. I thought he still hated me. On this day, I untied the ropes around him, placed a steaming bowl of pork and preserved egg porridge in front of him, and turned to leave. The moment I turned my head, I realized he was staring intently at me. His eyes, usually filled with a scholarly air, were now brimming with hot tears. While I was still feeling bewildered, he suddenly stood up and, like a drowning man clutching onto a piece of driftwood, pulled me into a tight embrace. He held me with such force as if trying to merge me into his very bones.
Wife,
He choked out, his voice terribly hoarse.
I'm sorry, I was too naive. But in truth, on the night I was knocked unconscious, I had a dream that was exactly like what you described.
My entire body shuddered, freezing right on the spot.
In the dream, I saw them. I saw how brutally they snatched Duo away and how they pushed me out to my death. I also saw that beast, Lin Jiaojiao, after they murdered us, laughing so loudly. Those were all real, weren't they? That wasn't a dream. That was the hell you actually went through, wasn't it?
Tears instantly burst through the floodgates. I bit my lip hard and nodded desperately in his arms.
Thank you.
Lin Dong cried like a child, repeatedly kissing my hair.
Thank you for knocking me out. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for protecting our daughter, even if it meant bearing the burden of everything alone.
He let go of me, cupped my face in his hands, his eyes filled with a determination and ruthlessness I had never seen before.
Wife, I promise you, from now on, I will never show those beasts even a shred of mercy again. This time, I will protect you and Duo with my life. No matter what the outside world becomes, we will make it to the dawn.
I hugged him back, my tears soaking his shirt, but I knew that this tribulation of rebirth was something we had finally survived. This terrifying apocalyptic cold wave lasted for over a full month. After more than a month, the wind and snow outside finally stopped. The thick clouds dispersed, and the long-awaited sunlight shone down once again on this vast, white land of death. As the temperature slowly rose, the government's snow-clearing crews and rescue helicopters finally made their way into the villa district. Our family of 3, dressed in clean winter clothes, pushed open the heavy steel door that had protected us for a month. Outside the door, in the hallway, there lay, shockingly, the frozen corpses of Sun Ershang and Sun Xiaosheng. And out in the yard, amidst the mud left behind by the melting snow, rescue workers found Lin Jiaojiao, Sun Daqiang, and Zhang Kuihua's lifeless remains. In and around my home, there were 5 bodies in total, 3 men and 2 women. I calmly called the police. Facing the officers' questions, I recounted how they had broken into our home, taken over our space, and how they eventually ran out of food, descending into madness in the extreme cold. Before freezing and starving to death, I recounted every single detail exactly as it had happened, and I submitted part of the footage captured by the basement surveillance as evidence. The police ruled that under extreme natural disaster conditions, this was a case of home invasion and internal infighting. We were deemed victims acting in self-defense and bore no responsibility whatsoever. After the case was closed, without the slightest reluctance, I immediately, at a very low market price, quickly sold this villa, filled with painful and unbearable memories. With the huge sum of money from the sale, along with Lin Dong, and taking Duo, who had regained her cheerful smile, we boarded a plane to a southern coastal city. Looking through the airplane window at the gradually receding land below, which once buried countless darkness and freezing cold, I tightly held Lin Dong and Duo's hands. Over there, the sunshine is warm, and spring lasts all year round. We will begin what truly belongs to us, undisturbed by heartless people ever again. A new life.